An episode about a character making a reluctant and very uncomfortable trip home to spend time with her family, and I'm reviewing it in a video that's being released on Thanksgiving Day? I couldn't have planned this any better, could I? If it was intentional, which I think it was. I don't know. I wrote the schedule for this series a long time ago. This is a review of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode Prodigal Daughter. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know if the suddenly disappeared mob widow Chief O'Brien is searching for is alive or dead, be warned, spoilers beyond this point. It's a Dax episode with an added dash of O'Brien episode. In other words, it's the Ezri and Miles team up we've all been waiting for. Let's get to it. Kira, Odo, Ezri, and Bashir are hanging out in Quarks, and Ezri and Bashir, man, they've both got problems. Ezri is nauseated at the thought of all the gawk with her name on it sitting in the cargo bay. Jadzia ordered it a while back for a birthday party for General Martok, but then Rick Berman killed her, and when the Dax symbiote was transferred to Ezri, I guess the taste for Klingon cuisine didn't go with it. And Bashir is bummed out because Chief O'Brien has been away from the station for some time, and they haven't gotten to go to the holosuite and pretend to get killed defending the Alamo lately. But O'Brien's due back today, and his transport ship is docking soon. Bashir heads down to the airlock to welcome his best buddy home, but everyone disembarks from the ship and no O'Brien. So, a worried Bashir goes to Captain Sisko and says, "Hey, by the way, Chief O'Brien might have implied that he was taking some vacation time to go see his father, but what he actually did was he went looking for the widow of that low-level mobster he made friends with last season. That guy Bilby? Oh, sure, from the Donnie Brasco episode. Exactly. Anyway, Miles had kept in touch with her, but 3 weeks ago she suddenly disappeared. So, Miles went looking for her on New Sydney. And now he's missing too." Sisko's like, "Well, this is great. You're on my shit list for knowing about this and not telling me. Write down everything you know about where O'Brien went and who and what he was looking for, and no holographic historical bloodbaths until that report is on my desk." Dad, but the Alamo. You heard me, young man. So, it just so happens that Ezri's family lives in the star system where New Sydney is located. Actually, Ezri's family, the Tegans, are kind of a big deal. They run a successful mining operation. Sisko asks Ezri if she can get her mom to ask the local authorities if they can find out what happened to O'Brien. Ezri is happy to help, but she's not super thrilled at the prospect of calling home. It's obvious she and her family, specifically she and her mother, don't get along. And she tells Sisko things have only gotten more awkward since she was joined with the Dax symbiont. Still, Ezri calls home and talks to her mom, and they have an awkward conversation that ends with Mom agreeing to help out with the search for O'Brien on the condition that Ezri come visit, since she hasn't been home in 3 years. Since Ezri reluctantly agreeing to things is already becoming a pattern in this episode, Ezri reluctantly agrees. Bashir sees her off. There's a nice moment where, seeing how very not thrilled she is to be going home, he tells her, "Hey, I get it. I'm not close with my family either." Cut to every mine ever. It's nice to see that even in the future, mining is the filthiest, most awful industry imaginable. And because Mom is such a control freak, Ezri's family home is located literally right next to the mine. What a great place to grow up that must have been, huh? Ezri arrives and is greeted by Norvo, the nice brother who understands her and who she gets along with, and then by Janelle, the walking embodiment of firstborn syndrome. Ezri sees her mom, who talks shit about Ezri's hair, and she can go to hell. Ezri's hair is adorable and perfect. Mom informs Ezri that the local cops are still looking into what happened to O'Brien, but they don't have anything yet. Immediately, Mom and the brothers start pressuring Ezri to stick around for a bit instead of returning to Deep Space Nine, but Ezri's like, I'll probably leave as soon as we figure out what happened to Chief O'Brien, because I'm in Starfleet, and we're currently, in a war. Mom turns to Norvo and Janelle and gives them mining-related orders. Norvo is the bookkeeper, and he's supposed to be working on a revenue review that's a week overdue. A revenue review that's a week overdue, hey! And Janelle is apparently a foreman or something in the mine, and Mom reminds him that he's supposed to fire a guy. Mom and Ezri leave the room, and we linger a bit with Norvo and Janelle, who speculate that their recent maintenance issues are the result of sabotage by the Orion Syndicate. That night at dinner, Ezri opens up about her struggles as a newly joined Trill. Sometimes she forgets who she is. She refers to the children of previous Dax hosts as her own children. She's lost interest in a guy she liked pre-joining. See, Ezri wasn't prepared to be a symbiont host like most joined Trills are. She just happened to be the closest viable host when Jadzia was murdered by the executive producer of the show, and the experience has been a little overwhelming, but she's dealing with it. Later, Ezri hangs out with Norvo in his room. Norvo is an artist, but he's highly critical of his own work, and he's lately been upset by a rejection letter he received from the Andorian Academy. Norvo starts to run himself down, says that his art is just an indulgence, a hobby he took on because he wasn't disciplined enough to focus on work. Ezri says, "That's mother talking." Norvo seems resigned to living at home and working in the family business. Ezri tells him not to give up on his art, but he says, "Nah, I'm needed here." For what? To do the books? Let Mom hire an accountant, dude. Get out of here. Go do something else. You're an adult, and it's a free galaxy. Well, this part of it is, relatively speaking, at the moment. Norvo appreciates Ezri's support, but to prove that he's in a good place in his life and is happy with how everything is going, he spends the rest of the evening alone in his room getting drunk. The next morning, Mom tells Ezri that Norvo was up all night drinking and defacing his paintings, which were displayed around the house at Mom's insistence, even though Norvo didn't think they were very good. Mom blames Ezri for upsetting Norvo, but Ezri turns it back on Mom, like, Norvo is a grown man who wants to do something different with his life, and you've trapped him here and made him an accountant. That's even more unforgivable than not liking my hair. A debatable point. The mother-daughter argument is interrupted by Janelle, who enters along with a local cop and a battered Chief O'Brien, who looks like he's been going through a typical O'Brien must suffer escapade off camera. The cop explains that he only gave O'Brien the last of his many bruises. The rest came courtesy of the Orion Syndicate. O'Brien tells Ezri that he found Bilby's widow, and in a shocking turn of events no one could have predicted, she's dead. O'Brien is sure the Orion Syndicate killed her, but the cop isn't buying that. Killing the widow of a dead operative isn't the Syndicate's style. O'Brien's like, whatever, dude, I think I know a little more about how the Orion Syndicate does business. I was in a whole episode about them. The cop leaves, and Mom lets O'Brien go get cleaned up and change clothes before putting him to work down in the mines. She's like, "Hey, I heard you're an engineer. One of our drills don't work no more, and my dipshit son here is too much of a dipshit to fix it, so can you take a look at it?" O'Brien's like, "I'd love to show up your asshole son, yes." While O'Brien heads down, deep down in the mines, Ezri checks on Norvo. She asks him how he's feeling, and the conversation quickly starts to turn into a therapy session, so Norvo cuts it off. Ezri asks Norvo to come back with her to Deep Space Nine. To leave. Maybe not permanently, but just to get away from all of this, from their mother. Norvo's like, "I can't just leave." Ezri's like, "You can though. You can just leave." Think about it. In the mine, O'Brien quickly figures out what the problem is with the malfunctioning drill. A key part has been mislabeled. Wonder how that happened. As O'Brien explains this to Janelle, this guy, Bokar, walks up. He introduces himself as a commodities broker, but he's obviously a member of the Orion Syndicate because he notices the problems they're having with the drill and says something like, "Sure would be a shame if you kept having these malfunctions, wouldn't it?" O'Brien leaves and we hang back for a bit with Janelle and Bokar. Janelle's like, "Sabotaging our drills isn't going to make us want to do more business with the Orion Syndicate." Bokar says, "Never mind that. Do you know that guy O'Brien works with Starfleet intelligence? My friends at the police department told me he was here looking for Marika Bilby." The name Marika Bilby draws a reaction from Janelle. "Yeah," continues Bokar, "if your new buddy O'Brien knows what's good for him, he'll leave this system in a hurry." Later, O'Brien tells Ezri about Bokar, who O'Brien clocked as a member of the Orion Syndicate right away, and warns her that her brother Janelle is probably being leaned on by the Syndicate, hence the equipment malfunctions and work stoppages in the mine. Ezri finds it impossible to believe that either her brother or her mother would have anything to do with the Orion Syndicate. O'Brien's like, there's one way to find out. Let me check the financial records of your mother's company. If you have access to those files, can you show them to me? Ezri reluctantly agrees. O'Brien reads through the company financial records, then looks up at Ezri like, the fuck is this? Ezri's like, what? O'Brien says, Marika Bilby, the woman I came here to find, the woman who turned up dead, she's on the payroll. Why didn't anyone tell me they knew who she was? Why were they trying to hide it? Did you know about this? Were you sent here to stop me from finding the truth? Whoa, calm down there, Lieutenant Caffey. If I was supposed to stop you from finding the truth, why did I use my access to the family's business records, which I have for some reason, despite having nothing to do with the business, to help you find the truth? Good point. Sorry, I'm a little on edge. It's been weeks since I roleplayed being killed at the Alamo. The entries pertaining to Marika Bilby and the company payroll are super suspicious. There are no details about what her job actually was, and her salary increased rapidly until her disappearance. Ezri and O'Brien confront Ezri's family with their findings. Mom knows nothing about it and demands answers from Janelle, who says that Marika Bilby was on the payroll because he was returning a favor to the Orion Syndicate. It seems the company was in a bit of trouble not too long ago, and the Syndicate approached Janelle with an offer to help out. He took it. And yeah, okay, now their affairs are inextricably tangled up with those of the most infamous criminal organization in the galaxy, but hey, at least they still get to be rich mine owners, right? Janelle says that Marika wasn't happy with how much she was being paid, hence the increases in her salary. He swears he doesn't know how she died, and also, frankly, he's a little annoyed with Norvo over there, who was supposed to cook the books to hide the fact that she was on the payroll, but never got around to it. As Janelle continues to profess his innocence, something about the way Norvo keeps coming to his brother's defense triggers Ezri's spidey sense. And she turns to Norvo and says, do you know anything about what happened to Marika Bilby? And Norvo immediately confesses, because that's just how the story goes at this point. He says he went to see Marika to try and reason with her about the money, but she didn't listen. She got angry. She called his family liars and cheats and said they were just as bad as the Orion Syndicate. And Norvo realized that if she were gone, all their problems would be gone too. So he took care of it. Later, Norvo is led away in cuffs. Janelle starts to head back to work in the mine, but Ezri stops him and says, when Norvo's trial is over, you need to get the fuck out of here. It doesn't matter where, just go start your own life somewhere else. Then she tells her mom that she's going to stick around for Norvo's trial and then return to Deep Space Nine. Mom tearfully asks Ezri, this isn't my fault, is it, Ezri? And Ezri leaves without saying another word. Back on DS9 sometime later, O'Brien and Ezri are at Quark's. Ezri tells him Norvo was sentenced to 30 years in prison for the murder of Marika Bilby. O'Brien's like, I'm sorry because he's your brother, but he kinda had it coming. Ezri laments what happened to her brother. She tells O'Brien, Norvo was always the one of us with the most potential, the one we were sure was going to become something special. I spent so much of my life dreaming about getting out of that house that I didn't see what was happening to my own brother inside of it. The way all the pressure and criticism from our mother carved his heart up into little pieces. I should have done something to stop it. I should have gone home a long time ago. The end. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. The other episodes in this Family Matters batch of reviews have all been pretty character-driven, and Prodigal Daughter is largely character-driven as well, but it's also more plot-heavy than the others have been so far. The character-focused stuff in this one is excellent for the most part, while the plot... Let me cover the good parts first. This episode does a very good job of introducing a bunch of new characters, one-off characters. We're never going to see Ezri's mother or brothers again. Establishing everybody, and most importantly, establishing the dynamic of this family. Ezri's mother is not an over-the-top, mommy dearest type cartoon character. She doesn't rant and rave and overtly abuse her children, but the episode lets us see how she controls and dominates them using quieter methods. She clearly doesn't think much of Norvo's pursuit of art, but instead of coming down hard and forbidding him from doing it, she exploits his insecurities, embarrassing him while appearing to praise him, to drive down his self-worth, convince him that he's no good, and make him believe there's no life for him outside the family business. With Janelle, she weaponized the sense of responsibility he naturally felt as the oldest child, and apparently the oldest male in the family since Dad doesn't seem to be in the picture, and pushed him into making the family business his entire life. Almost every time we see Janelle, he's dealing with something related to the mine. Even when he's at home, talking with his mother or his siblings, he can only stay for a minute before having to leave for something work-related. And with Ezri, the only child to actually escape her orbit, Mom plays on her guilt for leaving and being away so long, and, during their dinner scene, tries to leverage Ezri's struggles with being a newly joined Trill to pull her back home. Ezri shows some vulnerability, talks about the occasional confusion and uncertainty she's dealing with in the aftermath of her unexpected joining, and Mom smells blood in the water and moves in like, "Don't worry, dear, we'll take care of you," and then she turns to the boys for immediate backup, "Won't we?" which they both promptly provide. In other words, Ezri's mom is a massive piece of shit, but there's no single scene where we're told that explicitly. We're just allowed to watch and notice it for ourselves. It's smart, restrained writing. Not that it's all that subtle, mind you. Having Ezri's family be in the mining business and locating the family home literally at the edge of a pit in a polluted wasteland is a bit on the nose, but this is Star Trek. If you're not going to go all in with a super obvious metaphor when you get the chance, why even bother, right? Creating such a sharply realized family situation for her also gives Ezri the opportunity to shine and further establish herself. This episode is midway through DS9's 7th and final season, Ezri's one and only season on the show. And there are times when Season 7 feels a bit like the Ezri show because the writers pay so much attention to her, but that's understandable. She was a new character being introduced into a strongly established ensemble very late in the series, and they knew going in this was the final season, so if anybody had an Ezri story, it was now or never. Some of Ezri's strongest moments come in this episode, and some of Nicole DeBoer's strongest moments as well. I like the way she plays the scene where Sisko asks her for help in finding Chief O'Brien. And of course, a lot of the credit for that goes to Avery Brooks as well. I enjoy how the dynamic between Sisko and Ezri is so different from the dynamic between Sisko and Jadzia. Sisko and Jadzia were essentially peers, even though Sisko was a bit older than she was. But the age difference between Sisko and Ezri is so much greater that Sisko takes on a more fatherly quality when talking with her. He's gentle and almost apologetic, especially once he realizes that things aren't great between Ezri and her family. And as Ezri, DeBoer is very effective at putting across her mixed feelings of duty to her captain and old friend and dread at having to talk to her mother. There are two more strong Ezri-centered moments I want to point out. First is the beat where Ezri realizes that Norvo is involved in the killing of Marika Bilby. She knows her brother. Norvo is the one she's closest to, clearly, and there's something about the way he tells his mother to back off of Janelle that just hits Ezri wrong. This turn she does, this moment when she realizes the truth but doesn't want to believe it, is just perfect. Second, and my personal favorite, is the silent walk-off from her mother at the end. It's a good beat on the surface because it's the child stepping away from the shitty parent, and that's always effective, but it's even better when you stop and think about it in the context of the entire episode and with consideration for Ezri's character. Ezri is the counselor on Deep Space Nine, and throughout this episode we see her slipping into therapist mode. She does it with Norvo in one of their scenes together, and Norvo calls her out on it. And she apologizes. "Sorry, it's what I do," she says. Then, at the end, Ezri's mother says, "I didn't do this, did I? This isn't my fault, is it?" She's reaching out to her daughter, asking for counsel, and Ezri withholds it. She doesn't just walk away from her domineering mother. She walks away from her mother who is in need of the precise skills she has, the skills she has been exercising almost instinctively throughout the episode. It's a powerful statement that Ezri delivers. You didn't give us what we needed from you, and now I'm not giving you what you need from me. And she doesn't have to say a word. Though primarily an Ezri episode, this is also a little bit of an O'Brien episode. I like the way O'Brien's character is integrated into the story here. He doesn't actually appear on screen until midway through, and when he does finally show up, we get to see O'Brien almost completely separated from all his familiar surroundings. He's not in uniform, he's not here on any official assignment, he's not here with one of his established foils like Bashir or Keiko or Worf or Cisco or Kira. He knows and serves with Ezri, but they aren't exactly best buddies. He's as alone in this episode as we've ever seen him. Because they aren't an established pairing, and because Ezri is still so new and the show is so late in its run, there's an invigorating freshness to the scenes between O'Brien and Ezri. Their relationship really is a blank slate. That's why the moment when O'Brien discovers that Marika Bilby was on the company payroll works so well. He confronts Ezri with the discovery, accuses her of secretly working against him. He's not angry, he doesn't make a big scene, but he's tense and suspicious, and we realize that he doesn't trust her because he doesn't know her. Watching the episode this morning, I found it to be a somewhat electrifying moment, because we have no expectations and no idea what's about to happen. Obviously, we know Ezri isn't trying to mislead O'Brien, but he doesn't know that. The nature of O'Brien's involvement makes this episode a follow-up to the previous season's Honor Among Thieves, which I haven't reviewed yet in this series. When I think about this episode in relation to that one, I can't help but have a chuckle at what a piece of work Bilby's wife apparently was. In Honor Among Thieves, Bilby's love for his family is presented as one of his supposedly redeeming qualities, and that family exists in a sort of idealized state off-screen. Mrs. Bilby remains off-screen in this episode, but becomes a much more interesting character. She's drawing a salary from the mining company on orders from the Orion Syndicate as compensation for Bilby's death, but she's not happy with the money? She wants more? She's so demanding of more money that even after multiple increases, she's still not satisfied? And Norvo decides his best option is just to kill her? Jesus! Then again, the Orion Syndicate did kill her husband, so it's not as if she isn't justified. Dr. Bashir only appears in a few scenes at the beginning, but he gets some excellent character beats as well. His eagerness to see his best friend, Chief O'Brien, again, his concern when O'Brien doesn't show up as expected, and the moment he shares with Ezri before she leaves that I mentioned in the summary, when he tells her he's not super tight with his family either. All good stuff. The characterization, no complaints. The plot, I mean, it's not terrible, but some complaints. Ezri automatically having access to the sensitive company records is awfully convenient, isn't it? I know it's the family business and she's part of the family, but she's not involved with the business in any capacity whatsoever. So did her mom just give her the password at some point for no reason other than it was her birthright? Also, the exact manner in which Norvo gets personally involved in the events leading to the murder of Marika Bilby is a little fuzzy, as is his reasoning for killing her. So, the Orion Syndicate approaches Janelle about putting Marika on the payroll as a favor to them after they bailed out the mining business, and Janelle does it, and Norvo's only involvement is apparently through the accounting, because Janelle tells him to hide the payments to Marika. But then, at some point, for some reason, Norvo decides to get personally involved, I guess because he arbitrarily determines that she's asking for too much money and goes to see Marika in person. And during that meeting, things get ugly between them and he decides the best thing to do would be to kill her? Walk me through that again? When he confesses, he says, I realized that if she went away, all our problems would go away too. How'd he figure that? His family is still in bed with the Orion Syndicate, and after Marika's death, the Orion Syndicate is still hanging around, exerting pressure on the company, which, obviously, they're gangsters. When the woman they told Janelle to pay turns up dead, it's not as if they were just going to say, well, okay then, that takes care of that. Pleasure doing business with you. Have a nice life. None of these are plot holes exactly, and maybe it's best to just chalk this all up to Norvo being out of his depth and failing to think any of this through, which is fine, I guess, but I don't know, I can't help but feel like that's too easy. Norvo's personal motivations, the disappointing artistic son, whose mother always made him feel like he wasn't strong enough to do what was necessary, deciding to handle a problem himself and prove that he was worthy, that works for me, but the circumstances surrounding Marika's murder could use a bit more clarity. Prodigal Daughter was written by Bradley Thompson and David Weddle, who co-wrote a dozen episodes of Deep Space Nine together, mostly in the last 2 seasons, and was directed by Victor Lobel, who also joined the series late in the run, directing a total of 4 Deep Space Nine episodes, most notably In the Pale Moonlight. Solid character writing, somewhat hobbled by plot-related issues, but when I look at the episode as a whole, what really stands out, with special relevance to the theme of this review batch, is the message it carries about family. Yes, family can be, should be, a positive, supportive thing. Families should help each other, support each other, keep each other accountable, and hold each other up. But as Ezri shows us throughout this episode, and as her brothers, especially Norvo, discover at great cost, if your family isn't like that, if your family tears you down rather than holding you up, the best thing you can do is get the fuck out. You don't owe it to your parents to be the child they wanted. You owe it to yourself to be who you are. Those are my thoughts on Prodigal Daughter. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next time as this batch of reviews of episodes centered on family matters continues. We're leaving Deep Space Nine behind and moving over to Star Trek Voyager, and the episode I'm reviewing is from Season 2 of that series. It's called Tattoo. See you next time for that one. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.